I am forced into speech because men of science have refused to follow my advice without knowing why. It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this contemplated invasion of the Antarctic, with its vast fossil hunt and its wholesale boring and melting of the ancient ice cap, and I am the more reluctant because my warning may be in vain. In the end, I must rely on the judgment and standing of the few scientific leaders who have, on the one hand, sufficient independence of thought to weigh my data on its own hideously convincing merits, or in the light of certain primordial and highly baffling myth cycles, and on the other hand, sufficient influence to deter the exploring world in general from any rash and overambitious program in the region of those mountains of madness. As a geologist, my object in leading the Miskatonic University expedition was wholly that of securing deep-level specimens of rock and soil from various parts of the Antarctic continent, aided by the remarkable drill devised by Professor Frank H. Pabodie of our engineering department. We planned to cover as great an area as one Antarctic season, or longer, if absolutely necessary, would permit, operating mostly in the mountain ranges and on the plateau south of Ross Sea, regions explored to varying degree by Shackleton, Amundsen, Scott, and Byrd. The coming Starkweather-Moore expedition proposes to follow despite the warnings I have issued since our return from the Antarctic. The public knows of the Miskatonic expedition through our frequent wireless reports to the Arkham Advertiser and Associated Press, and through the later articles of Pabodie and myself. We were marvelously well equipped for our specific purposes, and in all matters pertaining to supplies, regimen, transportation, and camp construction, we profited by the excellent example of our many recent and exceptionally brilliant predecessors. It was the unusual number and fame of these predecessors which made our own expedition, ample though it was, so little noticed by the world at large. As the newspapers told, we sailed from Boston Harbor on September 2nd, 1930, taking a leisurely course down the coast and through the Panama Canal, and stopping at Samoa and Hobart, Tasmania, at which latter place we took on final supplies. None of our exploring party had ever been in the polar regions before, hence we all relied greatly on our ship captains, J.B. Douglas, commanding the brig Arkham and serving as commander of the sea party, and Georg Torfensen, commanding the bark Miskatonic, both veteran whalers in Antarctic waters. As we left the inhabited world behind, the sun sank lower and lower in the north, and stayed longer and longer above the horizon each day. At last we had encountered an outpost of the great unknown continent and its cryptic world of frozen death. Through the desolate summits swept raging, intermittent gusts of the terrible Antarctic wind, which for some subconscious mnemonic reason seemed to me disquieting and even dimly terrible. Using small boats, we effected a difficult landing on Ross Island shortly after midnight on the morning of the 9th, carrying a line of cable from each of the ships and preparing to unload supplies by means of a breeches buoy arrangement. Our sensations on first treading Antarctic soil were poignant and complex, even though at this particular point the Scott and Shackleton expeditions had preceded us. We landed all our drilling apparatus, dogs, sledges, tents, provisions, gasoline tanks, experimental ice-melting outfit, cameras, both ordinary and aerial, aeroplane parts, and other accessories, including 3 small portable wireless outfits, besides those in the planes, capable of communicating with the Arkham's large outfit from any part of the Antarctic continent that we would be likely to visit. We hoped to complete our work during a single Antarctic summer, but if this proved impossible, we would winter on the Arkham, sending the Miskatonic north before the freezing of the ice for another summer's supplies. The barrier camp was semi-permanent and destined to be a storage cache for gasoline, provisions, dynamite, and other supplies. Only 4 of our planes were needed to carry the actual exploring material, the 5th being left with a pilot and 2 men from the ships at the storage cache to form a means of reaching us from the Arkham in case all our exploring planes were lost. At last we were truly entering the white, eon-dead world of the ultimate South. It was now midsummer, and with haste and care we might be able to conclude work by March and avoid a tedious wintering through the long Antarctic night. Lake's sub-expedition into the unknown, as everyone will recall, sent out its own reports from the shortwave transmitters on the plains, these being simultaneously picked up by our apparatus at the southern base and by the Arkham at McMurdo Sound, whence they were relayed to the outside world on wavelengths up to 50 meters. 10:05 p.m. On the wing. After snowstorm, have spied mountain range ahead higher than any hitherto seen. May equal Himalayas, allowing for height of plateau. Reach as far as can see to right and left. Suspicion of 2 smoking cones. All peaks black and bare of snow. Gale blowing off them impedes navigation. After that, Pabodie, the men, and I hung breathlessly over the receiver. In half an hour, Lake called us again. Moulton's plane forced down on plateau and foothills, but nobody hurt and perhaps can repair. Mountains surpass anything in imagination. Everest out of the running. Whole thing marvelous in red-gold light of low sun, like land of mystery in a dream or gateway to forbidden world of untrodden wonder. Though it was technically sleeping time, not one of us listeners thought for a moment of retiring. Then at 11 p.m. came another call from Lake. Over highest foothills. Don't dare try really tall peaks in present weather. Frightful work climbing, and hard going at this altitude. Main summits exceed Himalayas, and very queer. Goes farther in either direction than we can see. Odd formations on slopes of highest mountains. Impressive from distance. Close flying shows many cave mouths. From then on, for another half hour, Lake kept up a running fire of comment and expressed his intention of climbing some of the peaks on foot. Fowler makes discovery of highest importance in sandstone and limestone fragments from blasts. Will mean to biology what Einstein has meant to mathematics and physics. Examining certain skeletal fragments of large land and marine saurians and primitive mammals, find singular local wounds or injuries to bony structure not attributable to any known predatory or carnivorous animal of any period. Dogs growing uneasy as we work. 10:15 p.m. Important discovery. Orendorff and Watkins, working underground at 9:45 with light, found monstrous barrel-shaped fossil of wholly unknown nature, tissue evidently preserved by mineral salts, tough as leather but astonishing flexibility retained in places. 6 feet end to end, like a barrel with 5 bulging ridges in place of staves. In furrows between ridges are curious growths, combs or wings that fold up and spread out like fans, which gives almost 7-foot wingspread. Arrangement reminds one of certain monsters of primal myth, especially fabled elder things in Necronomicon. Must dissect when we get back to camp. Having trouble with dogs. (11:30 p.m.) Attention Dyer, Pabodie, Douglas. Matter of highest, I might say transcendent importance. Mills, Boudreau, and Fowler discover cluster of 13 more at underground point 40 feet from aperture. Have brought all to surface, leading off dogs to distance. They cannot stand the things. Cannot yet assign positively to animal or vegetable kingdom, but odds now favor animal. Baffles all conjecture as to origin. Complete specimens have such uncanny resemblance to certain creatures of primal myth that suggestion of ancient existence outside Antarctic becomes inevitable. Dyer and Pabodie have read Necronomicon, and will understand when I speak of elder things supposed to have created all earth life as jest or mistake. Also, like prehistoric folklore things Wilmarth has spoken of, Thulu cult, appendages, etc., state of preservation miraculous. Job now to get 14 huge specimens to camp without dogs, which bark furiously and can't be trusted near them.